I'm your cult boyfriend. I'm talking about Skins Season 6. Something that I really like about Skins that I've noticed by analyzing the show the way that I do, season by season, I love how the seasons interact with each other. You get these generations of characters for 2 seasons. Sometimes the second season will deconstruct the first season. Sometimes the introductory season will be just full of devastation, whereas the follow up season will be full of liberation, or even the opposite for some characters in certain arcs. I love the way that the show's overall structure, how each series of episodes interacts with the previous series of episodes. And I guess with a lot of hindsight, you can see how every episode interacts with every episode within every season. Like there's a lot of power built on top of power, and I think that makes Skins really interesting. And Skin Season 6 might be a really good example of that, because Skin Season 5, there was a character called Grace, who was one of my favorite characters. She was great. Her character really amplified the main themes of the 5th season, which was about the performative or theatrical qualities of the teenage experience, about how young people are trying out different roles and character types until they find one that feels authentic, and that's the one that they want to latch onto, the one that is rewarding to them, the one that feels right. And Grace was a character who was a different person to everyone that she met, because quite like characters like Cook or Effie, she knew that she was maybe not inside of a TV show like Cook and Effie did. Please watch my earlier Skins videos. Cook and Effie were wild to talk about, but Grace did understand the performative quality of being, of life, right? And she was a different person to everyone that she met, and she dies like in the very first episode of season 6. She's killed. And just like how Grace, when she was living, meant something else, something unique to every member of the cast, to every single character, her death means something different and unique to every single character. And this season's main theme is grief, and grief is unique and different to every single living person. We all process grief differently, and I think it is nice to kind of explore and investigate how different character types will interact with grief. And I think that the best parts of the show feature Grace appearing to our characters in their times of need, at their lowest, throughout this season, and kind of supplying them with hope, with closure, helping them through their grief. And I think that that's like the overwhelmingly emotional way to view this season at its most powerful. Of course, you can add a postmodern quality to Grace this season, to the idea of grief. How Grace, since she seemed to be so performative in the first season, understanding that you could choose a happy ending, that sort of concept, her reappearing here as some sort of ghost or specter, or some sort of beautiful haunting to our characters, um, could be her helping them find the completion of their arc, you know? Helping them complete the arc, helping them complete the story, the narrative of, um, of Gen 3 Skins without her. Grace is great. Grace is, a wonderful character, and it's through her this season that we do the most important things, and we do challenge these characters. It's definitely not as optimistic as season 5 was, but it's certainly a show that did give everyone a happy ending. Everyone had a happy ending at the end of this. And Rich, who seemed the most enlightened by the end, Rich was dating Grace. He seemed the most at peace with her passing over time, because of how much he interacts with her memory, with her spirit. He gets to look into the camera at the end and say bye. He's saying it to us. He's also saying it to Grace. He's saying it to whoever you want him to be saying it to. I kind of want him to be saying it to us, saying bye to the audience, because that's the last time we'll be seeing those characters. And I love a good postmodern moment, and that was a very decent one. I don't really think season 6 is very good. Season 6, oh, man, I think a lot of poor decisions were made in it. Like, I loved Grace. I loved Grace. I didn't love the idea of killing her. Seemed kind of not only irrational, like, from a writing standpoint, it seemed irrational. There were a lot of problems that arose from Grace dying, and I'm talking compositionally. Rich and Grace, they're the only couple within this entire generation of Skins characters within seasons 5 and 6, the only couple that had actual chemistry. That was Rich and Grace. And you thought it was a good idea to destroy that? And now there's really no chemistry anywhere. Like, I don't vibe with Aloe and Minnie at all. I still love Minnie, but I hate what they put her through this season. I hate the kind of cliche feeling that came along with the pregnancy and how it was turned into an affirmation of hope, an affirmation of Grace itself. Not even the person, but the concept. It became like a living, touchable thing, Grace itself, you know? I wasn't really vibing with just how kind of wishy-washy the ending was. But I mean, if Grace is pulling the strings in a ghost-like way, Grace is someone who believes in making a happy ending, and she believes that she could. And sure, she, I guess, with her interference, with her like spiritual interference, she did. She did create a happy ending. It just wasn't really fun for me to watch. Everyone had the happiest possible ending, but I really didn't like Aloe. I really didn't like Minnie and Aloe. I hated Frankie. Frankie is the one and only character who on Skins who I think is just completely annoying. I thought she was really cool in season 5. I have no idea why we took this pretty interesting, insecure, and hypersensitive non-binary person and tried to turn her into some knockoff Effie Stoneham in the follow-up. Like, this is not the same person at all. I understand that people change, and sometimes people change very harshly, very dramatically, and even effortlessly change at that, making her into this kind of senseless uh big pile of wannabe nihilism. Like, I didn't buy any of Frankie's howl at the moon kind of hedonistic, self-destructive qualities this season. I hated it. Like, she's no Effie Stoneham. She's no Cook. She's no Tony. Like, Frankie was simply annoying. She annoyed me to death this season. I hated what they did with her. I didn't see anything wrong with her character in season 5, and it's almost like rather than invent a new one, they just, like they gave up on the Frankie of season 5 and just invented something new out of thin air. Like, I understand that there's part of this generation specifically that's about the performative qualities of teenagers and how teenagers will try on different roles, but this is just way too insincere and contrived. Like, the the difference in her motions and her movements and her motivations and her characterization and her emotion and her sexuality, it's just way too different. This isn't the same character. This Frankie has nothing in common with the Frankie from season 5 and didn't have any chemistry with anyone. Trying to compel me to care about the love triangle between her, Maddie, and Nick, her and these two brothers should be pretty powerful. Even powerful in like a Greek tragedy sort of way. It should be it should make me think of like epic poetry, but it made me think of nothing because there was no chemistry between any of them, and there was no power either. It felt kind of sloppy, like sloppy writing. I don't want to be too harsh on this show because I still love it overall. I just think that season 6 is a very weak season, a very weak season of television. But there is that power and that poetry of how grief affects everyone differently, much like performance does. But you can't perform your way through grief. You can't do it. Grief will make that ugly, real part of you come out. You can't hide your grief forever. Grief will make the acting stop. Grief is maybe the only thing that makes this society of the spectacle, this theatrical universe, stop pretending. And you kind of see just how humiliating and sad and pathetic everyone is when they're confronted with grief. And I think we went to some interesting places. I liked Liv's episode, might be my favorite this season. Honestly, it might. They even gave that one fucking teacher who's been in it since the beginning time to shine. You know, I love a conversation that he has with Liv, where he's like, "Man, I'm quitting. I'm quitting being a teacher. I'm practically useless. You guys don't even know my last name," and he brings up that part of season 2 or the first generation of kids where he's like, once I helped a girl finish her exams by dancing with her. Once I did something that was kind of special, unique, and low key crazy. And he's talking, of course, about Cassie. And you're like, yeah, you did. You did. I'm happy you brought that up. And then, of course, it ends with Liv and Rich and Liv's sister and this teacher, Doug, at the fucking grave of Grace. And as as the episode ends, they all start kind of dancing. He gets his moment again, that moment of feeling useful and unique to the narrative itself. Grace, through grief, supplied everyone with a happy ending that perhaps she wouldn't have been able to deliver had she still lived. I loved Grace, though. Grace was so likable. Like, definition of likable in season 5. You could have killed Frankie. You clearly didn't want to do anything. Whatever. So I was really sad when Grace died. I thought she was a great character, but we got to see her in very small doses as this sort of hauntingly kind of beautiful and all-knowing figure, which was cool, which was great. And she helped her friends at their lowest, even in her death, which does speak to Gen 3's more optimistic qualities. Like, this isn't as optimistic as season 5, but it's still more optimistic than any of the other seasons, any of the other generations. These kids all get a happy ending. We have brothers hugging each other. We have babies being born, smiles all around. Everyone's fucking so thrilled. There was a certain amount of punishment this season, too. I mean, Grace being killed, that's the most severe punishment that a show could ever put upon a character, especially a character like Grace, who was just delightful, just simply lovely to be around, to watch. Killing your most likable character not only punishes every character involved, but it punishes Grace and it punishes the audience. It's a choice. It's a choice. I just didn't find what all the other characters were doing to be very interesting. I didn't like any of the writing for virtually any of the characters. This was the only season of Skins where I was bored. It's only 10 episodes and I was somehow bored. I shouldn't be bored with 10 episodes. You should be able to keep me entertained with 10 episodes. This show didn't. I was bored. I didn't care about anyone's narrative arc. I didn't care where anyone was going. I didn't care what the show was doing. It really wasn't thrilling me. I don't want to be so negative. If you really liked this season, that's fine and that's great. I didn't personally, but there is still some value. Now I'm on to the last season. Oh, I am actually more than thrilled. More than excited to see how Skins is preparing to end it all.